We are getting closer to primary day in New Hampshire. The new CBS News Battleground Tracker shows Bernie Sanders trying to hold on to his lead against Pete Buttigieg, who has made gains coming off of the Iowa caucuses. For more on what to expect out of New Hampshire, I want to turn back to Elaine Quijano. She is at the Bonfire Country Bar in Manchester. Elaine, take it away.
Thank you, Tanya. I'm here with James Pindell, political reporter with the Boston Globe. James, thank you so much. Great to see you in person.
Yeah, exactly.
You recently reported on this piece regarding independents and undeclared voters here in New Hampshire. And you said, quote, in the end, the crucial contest looming Tuesday will likely be decided by a different audience. Independents, why is that? Remind us.
Yeah, right. It's simple math here. The independents make up about 43% of the electorate in New Hampshire. They can pick either ballot they want. Remember, there is a Republican primary tomorrow,
Yes.
technically. So if they want to vote opposition of Trump or support Trump, they can do that as well. Or they can pick up the Democratic ballot, which is what we expect most of them to do. That's, of course, that's where the action's at. And a lot of them are independent voters because of that very reason, so they can pick either way. The estimates vary. In some polls, for example, the estimate is that half of the electorate will be independent voters. The more conservative estimate is around 40%. So this is a pretty huge block of voters. And so while most of the year these candidates have been focusing on appealing to the liberal base or those Democrats they know will turn out every single time, it's with the margins of victory right now so tight, even if Bernie Sanders looks great at like 5 or 6% lead, the independent voters are the ones that have historically been that game changer. They make up their minds very late. They're responsible for John McCain winning, for example. You can go down the line on different folks who've won with those independent voters. And one more point on this, which is in 2016, Bernie Sanders, of course, blew out the New Hampshire primary. He had a 22-point win over Hillary Clinton. Among Democrats, they were basically even. Among independent voters, though, Bernie Sanders won 72% of them. So you can see the impact that they can have in this race.
So what have you been hearing from independent voters so far? What's most important to them?
Yeah, it's kind of a mix. Again, we talked about this a little bit before we started, but independent voters are not a monolithic group. Some are really Republicans, and they will consistently vote Republicans. Some are Democrats and do the same. And then some are kind of lazy voters, folks who either just don't trust politics or politicians or don't trust the parties, and maybe they are casual voters. Inside of our numbers at the Boston Globe, we've been polling every single night with a tracking poll. There has been a lot of movement among independent voters. It's still a mixed bag. Bernie Sanders has about 25% support among independent voters. He started the week with 30%, so he has dropped a little bit. Pete Buttigieg now has 22% among independent voters, and the real story here is Amy Klobuchar, who's ending quite well. She began the week with only 5% support among independent voters. She's now at 15%. So that has been a really key voting block that's been making decision late in the game.
I'm curious, is Iowa a factor, or has it been a factor?
Yes, actually. After all the debacle, it actually kind of has been. Political research has shown that the person who wins the Iowa caucuses gets about an 8 to 12-point bump in the New Hampshire primary immediately, almost overnight. And that's exactly what happened for Pete Buttigieg. Whether he was named winner, I don't know what day we're talking about here or whatever, or whenever he's officially named the winner after the 3 canvass, he definitely got that Iowa bump, no matter what. And then, of course, Amy Klobuchar did not get that bump until after her debate performance. The interesting thing there, actually, is the person who did not get a bump, which is Bernie Sanders. His support is so... The good news is that it's baked in. The bad news is that it's baked in. He won that argument largely over Elizabeth Warren at this point over the progressive wing. He did not get that much of a bump.
Yeah, let me ask you about Senator Warren. So she said her plan is to go everywhere. How has she been targeting New Hampshire as opposed to other early states?
That's a new plan, to go everywhere. The woman who has a lot of plans. Her plan very early on was to win Iowa and especially do well in New Hampshire. Historically, she has to. She's from Massachusetts. Viewers from around the country may not realize this, but about 2/3 of the population in New Hampshire is in the Boston media market. They turn on the TV, they watch CBS, for example. It's out of Boston. And so they will see Elizabeth Warren almost as a hometown senator in some ways. I'm from the Boston Globe. We're the largest newspaper in New Hampshire, for example. So typically, Massachusetts politicians do very well in the New Hampshire primary, and if they don't, they're out. So this new idea that if she doesn't do that well, she can live another day, she technically may be able to, on money, but the political argument is really difficult. If you can't win here, you can't win a neighboring state that they know you. If you can't win a state that has that elects women at record-breaking levels, for example, and she has one of the best organized campaigns in this state. If you can't win here, where else are you going to win? And with electability such a major issue in this race, it's going to be a hard one for her to solve.
Yeah, so really high stakes for her, it sounds like. Finally, the New Hampshire Secretary of State's office says that they are expecting a large turnout on Tuesday. What are some of the things that are influencing that?
Well, I think overall we are in a very polarized country and we're in a very polarized state, and voter interest has been very high. In 2018, in the midterms here, they had record-breaking numbers in a pretty, let's be honest, a lame primary, even in that election. There's a kind of a lame race for governor. The person never won. There was kind of an interesting race for Congress here, but there's a lot in this Trump era. Republicans are fired up and they're going to turn out. Democrats have been fired up as well. The only question is whether or not it is going to break records, like some say it may. The Secretary of State thinks it may. Obviously, we thought we were going to have record-breaking turnout in Iowa. That did not happen.
All right, James Pindell, thank you so much, James.
Thanks for having me.
Tanya, back to you in New York.